my name is Kelsey Morgan, and today we will be talking about the topic of social interaction by Lev Vygotsky. If at any time you feel I'm going too fast, please pause the video and go back over it. In this PowerPoint, we will be discussing who Lev Vygotsky is and what his beliefs were. We will go into his social development theory, how he believes social influences affect cognitive development, his views on language and cognitive development, and lastly, a little on how his theories agreed and disagreed with that of his peer, Piaget. Alright, let's begin. To start off, Lev Vygotsky was born on November 17, 1896, and he died on June 11, 1934. He was a well-known Soviet psychologist that had become the foundation of research and theory in cognitive development. His theory stressed the fundamental role of social interaction in the development of cognition. He strongly believes that community plays a central role in the process of making meaning. Vygotsky's social development theory. Vygotsky's social development theory introduced two major principles. First, an individual's cognitive development is limited up to a certain extent or within a certain range. Second, in order for an individual to reach his or her full cognitive development, he or she must engage in social interactions. Social influences on cognitive development. Vygotsky believed that young children are curiously and actively involved in their own learning and the discovery and development of new findings. He placed emphasis on social contribution to the process of development. He believed that learning could not be separated from social context. According to Vygotsky, important learning by the child occurs through social interactions with a skilled tutor. The tutor can demonstrate behaviors or provide verbal instruction. Vygotsky refers to this as cooperative dialogue. The child internalizes the information provided and uses it to guide their own performances later on. Scaffolding is an important concept in Vygotsky's theory. In order to gain a proper understanding of Vygotsky's theory, you have to become familiar with its three main principles. The three main principles are, first, social interaction, second, the more knowledgeable other, the MKO, and third, the zone of proximal development. Social interactions. These social interactions play a central part in cognitive development. If children are removed from society, they are unable to learn and develop. Children need social learning experiences to grow. The more knowledgeable other. This is a person who has a better understanding or higher ability as a learner. This does not always have to be the teacher or another adult. It can oftentimes be a peer or other children. The zone of proximal development. The concept of the more knowledgeable other is related to the zone of proximal development. It refers to what a child can achieve independently and what a child can achieve with guidance from a skilled partner. Vygotsky saw this as an area where the most sensitive instruction should be given, allowing the child to develop skills they will one day use on their own. This helps develop higher mental functions. Vygotsky believed that language accelerates cognitive development. Language is developed through social interactions. There are two critical roles language plays in development. They are, the first, a means for adults to transfer information to children, and second, a powerful tool for intellectual adaptation. Vygotsky mentions three forms of language. The first, social speech. This is communication used to talk to others. This normally occurs around the age of 2. Second, private speech. Private speech is directed to the self and serves as intellectual function. This happens at around the age of 3. The final is silent and inner speech. This is seen around the age of 7, the means by which children direct their own learning or behavior. Vygotsky was the first psychologist to document the importance of private speech. He considered this the transition point between social and inner speech, the moment in development where language and thought come together to constitute verbal thinking. What are the benefits of this? Language serves the purpose of regulation or self-control over one's own cognitive process, such as memory and thought. This helps to regulate one's own thought process. To push even further, play is an essential part of language development and a child's understanding of the external world. When children engage in imaginative play, they create their own dialogues. They role play. They use play to make sense of the world by using their inner speech. The beliefs of Vygotsky and the beliefs of Piaget. Piaget was one of Vygotsky's peers. Although they worked at about the same time, they approached cognitive development from slightly different perspectives. Piaget's notion was that children's development must come from their learning. Vygotsky believed that social development comes prior to learning. First, Vygotsky places more emphasis on culture affecting cognitive development. This contradicts Piaget's view of universal stages of development. Vygotsky assumed that development varies across cultures. Second, Vygotsky puts more emphasis on social factors contributing to cognitive development. He believed it stems from social interactions from guided learning within the zone of proximal development, as children and their partners co-construct knowledge, working together. Piaget believed development stems from independent exploration. Each child did it on their own. And finally, the third, Vygotsky places different emphasis on the role of language in cognitive development. According to Piaget, language depends on thought for its development. For Vygotsky, thought and language are initially separate at the beginning and merge around the age of 3, producing verbal thought.
Piaget argued development precedes learning, holding that we interpret the world through mental schema, allowing us to make sense of our environment. Learning happens when facing situations our mental schema cannot easily process, leading to disequilibrium. To re-equalize itself, the mind either assimilates new information or adapts to using new skills. Piaget calls this process of assimilating new information and skills into our pre-developed schema, learning. Vygotsky agrees that learning happens by interacting with our environment. However, counter to Piaget, Vygotsky argues that learning precedes development. He holds that our present state of development is enhanced when confronted with new tasks just out of reach of our present abilities. The gap between our pre-existing development and what we can accomplish with the help of others is called the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky focuses on how proper instruction raises our ability through the ZPD as we internalize new information and skills. Learning takes place in the ZPD and precedes individual development. Piaget's theory deals more with states of development and mental schema, in line with Kant. Vygotsky's dialectical theory focuses mainly upon how instruction and society at large impacts learning, in line with Marx and Hegel. I find Vygotsky's theory more valuable as an educator because it focuses on the role teachers and society play in student learning and development.
Let's wrap it up. What did we learn in this PowerPoint? In order for an individual to reach his or her full cognitive development, he or she must engage in social interactions. There are 3 main principles of Vygotsky's work. The first, social interaction. The second, the more knowledgeable other, the MKO. And the third, the zone of proximal development, the ZBD. ZPD. Ready? Let's wrap it up. What did we learn today in this PowerPoint? In order for an individual to reach his or her full cognitive development, he or she must engage in social interactions. There are 3 main principles of Vygotsky's work. The first, social interaction. The second, the more knowledgeable other. And the third, the zone of proximal development. Language is developed through social interactions. It accelerates cognitive development. And finally, play is an essential part of both language development and a child's understanding of the external world. Thank you so much for learning with me today.